den, já jsem Kněžčíka a já jsem jeden z garantů partnerství s firmou Honeywell. Honeywell je náš zlatý partner, znamená velice si jej vážíme. Zároveň se to třeba v tom, že je pravidelný generální partner potom studentské soutěže Excellent Fit, která probíhá v květnu, takže doporučuji potom třeba i tam se potkat. A chtěl bych vám představit Kateřinu Henclovou, která dneska bude mluvit o data loss prevention, a protože já o tom vím akorát to, že data loss proběhne, když ztratím telefon, anebo mě zkolabuje hard drive, tak si rád poslechnu, o čem to bude dneska. Máte slovo.
Bude někomu vadit, když budu prezentovat v angličtině? Že vím o sobě, že líp se mi prezentuje, nebo aspoň mám takový ten pocit. A je tam občas nějaká terminologie, se kterou bych dost bojovala v češtině, tak nebude vadit. Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm Kačka, Kateřina Henclová. I'm in Honeywell in my second year now. I started as an intern when I was studying my bachelor degree here at FIT, and now I'm working full-time in the cybersecurity team, specifically data loss prevention. And I'm happy I get to share some kind of like introduction into this kind of niche field that's I didn't know existed until I started, basically. It's an interesting little area that I think only about 10% companies have. So what I'm going to talk about today, a little bit about data loss, about how to know what data you have in some kind of organization, and talk about policies and what kind of challenges we face. You might hear me often say the shortcut DLP. It's short for data loss prevention, so just so in case so you don't get confused. And what data loss prevention is a strategy that organizations apply to prevent unauthorized sharing, transfer, or use of sensitive data. So in the beginning, we want to talk about why this team or this kind of data loss prevention strategy even exists. The core is to protect the data, right? You've probably heard as well, that data is the new oil. I like to joke that you can refine and process oil to give it value, just like you can refine and process data and it will give you value. And when oil spills happen, it can be really messy. Data spills are also really messy and damaging. I have some examples here of some data breaches recently. I'm sure you see it all the time, right? So data breaches are happening all the time, and this is why DLP is so important these days, to protect these losses. Because when losses happen, they're damaging to the organization, right? They cause financial damage, loss of reputation, fines, and even to the individuals themselves, because they can also have some kind of damage from their data being exposed. So that's why we have data loss prevention. But now, how do you get to know what data you have in your organization, and especially what is sensitive? Keyword sensitive, really, here, because that's what you need to prioritize when you protect when you protect the data. So just so you know, have a bit of an idea what I mean here when I'm talking about sensitive data. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind is PII, which is personally identifiable information. So that can be direct, like your ID number, indirect, like your date of birth or address. It's information that helps identify you as an individual. Even under GDPR, information like race and gender is a special category of the PII, because together with other information, they help identify you. And I also have HPI, which is health protected information. And it's also a special subcategory that's also heavily protected, so it's worth mentioning. I also have some other categories that organizations want to protect, like HR data, credentials, financial, security data, unpatched vulnerabilities, even strategy, because, for example, when a company is splitting, when it's merging, when it's selling a part of it, then that data is also really sensitive, and that when it gets out, of course, it will cause some kind of competitive damage, maybe. A special category that I want to mention is intellectual property. This is a special category because it's not so much defined in laws and regulations how that it needs protecting, but the organizations will prioritize this kind of data first, because that's like considered the crown jewels for the organization, the most valued information and data they want to protect. And then lastly, when you're considering what might be sensitive, you need to keep your mind open, because it could be things that you might not think of first. For example, disaster recovery plans or some kind of organizational charts. So how do you go about discovering this data? This process that's called data discovery in DLP. You do this by running automated scans. And there are two types of scans that you can run. One is to analyze the content. This is done, of course, with regex or some kind of keyword lists. But it's not so good to rely only on analyzing the content, because they lead to lots of false positives. You need to implement also some kind of contextual analysis, and these days modern DLP solutions will implement, or they will use AI and machine learning to make this really effective. And context such as where the file came from, where it's going, how the data is being used and who's accessing it, will give you the bigger picture to classify the data better, or make a better decision on how to classify it. And there are various sort of locations you need to consider when you are looking for data. You can consider, of course, like data in rest, data in motion, data in use. From the DLP perspective, there are three types of DLPs. One is endpoint, which is all the data that's located on your devices, storage on your phones. Next is network DLP, which is the DLP, or it's the data that's in motion, that's somehow being sent, maybe via email. And then there's the cloud, which is used more and more these days. So it could be SharePoint, it could be Teams, data that's uploaded and it's not stored necessarily on the devices. So it's really challenging to have sort of like a good idea what all data you have in an organization, and it can take a lot of time. And there's always new technologies and tools being used. So it's a continuous process to try to map those and include those into your sort of visibility of what you see in your organization. Next is, when you know what data you have, you need to decide how sensitive it is. Really sort of like, you can have more layers to sensitivity. You could just have sort of that it is sensitive, and then you can have that it really, really, really is sensitive. That it could actually cause harm or physical damage or hurt someone if it goes out. So these are some general labels. Of course, it depends. You can have custom labels based on which organization you are in, what it prioritizes. But in general, you have some kind of public data that's already published. It's available to everyone, and you can share it as you like. Then you have internal data. That's usually the default label that you have for a lot of data. It's the data that's not necessarily harmful, but if it goes out, you don't really want it to go out so much. And then you have the sensitive data, on which you might want to apply some extra protections like encryption or some kind of access control that's more strict. So now we can move on to the actual core of DLP, which is policies. And when I started in DLP, I was a bit confused what policies are, because I sort of had the idea that it's maybe something like guidelines that employees should follow. But in DLP, policies are the mechanism that actually can do blocking and sort of prevent some kind of data loss. They actually do prevent, or they actually do protect the data. So to sort of show you what a DLP policy is, it's a set of rules. These rules are made out of conditions and actions. And sort of I include a bit of a workflow here of how that rule works. So first, DLP engineer or admin will publish a rule. That means that they put this rule into production. And they specify some conditions that need to be met. When they're met, the rule gets triggered and will then enforce some kind of actions. And the actions that can happen could be usually blocking, which is preventing that action that the user was trying to do. For example, sending an email, then that email won't get sent. Another common action is to warn the user, and it also gives them an override option. So that will look like a pop-up window on the screen to ask the user, do they really want to send this, because it's sensitive data and it might not be so good. They could face some consequences. The override option gives them the option to give some kind of business justification why they are required to send it, that it is okay. And it allows that action after they submit. So they have the option to override. Some other actions that could happen are encrypting the data, lock and quarantine, which is basically that the file gets moved to could be moved to a safe location, or the user could lose access to it. And then some more benign actions could be alerting the DLP engineers or security team, or audit only, which is used for developing the policies and tuning them. It's sort of like a testing mechanism so that the engineers can get it right before they actually publish it, because you don't want to publish something and cause a lot of disruption in the workflow. So it requires a bit of work also to get the settings right, the configuration, so that you're not going to stop the production of all the other teams. And a bit of I made a little bit of a visualization what policies look like. Usually policies are specified for location. So in this case, we can say we're making a policy for Microsoft Exchange, and then we're going to write the rules that we want to apply to Exchange, to the email service. So for example, the first rule will be about sensitive labels. We'll focus on sensitive labels when we're we're going to monitor when someone tries to send a confidential file to an external domain, then the action will be to block it and alert us. The next rule could be, for example, scanning the email body to see if there's any sensitive data like credit card numbers. When it detects this, then it will block the email from being sent and also alert. Another rule, for example, that we can write could be we want to limit the number of CAD drawing files that get sent to external domains. In this case, we don't want to completely block it, so we give an override option. So this is what a policy can look like, for example. And now a bit of challenges that we face. I didn't make a slide, but I think a challenge that I think about often is how to find the right balance between the policies to not make it too strict, but at the same time have some kind of security measures that will protect the organization. So it takes a lot of time and tuning to figure it out. So that's a challenge that I think about often. But another challenge can be to also train the employees, because of course we all know that humans are the weakest point in any kind of sort of cybersecurity concept. So you need to when you have a new employee, you need to tell them what they can do or what they shouldn't. It can be good to have some regular training, but probably the best time to train employees is when you actually catch them in the action of sending something that they shouldn't. That's the perfect learning opportunity for them. That's when you give them that pop-up window and explain that they're sending something sensitive, this is considered sensitive. Are they sure they want to send it, because they could face some consequences? A good recommendation I would give is to also explain motivation. Why should they even care? Because maybe they don't care so much about the organization, but they could care about maybe what could happen if they got caught in the act, right? So you need to also explain that what they're doing isn't good for the organization. It probably isn't good for them either. Give them some kind of motivation. Why should they even care? And lastly, whenever you're making some kind of big changes, then it's good to prepare some kind of materials or inform the the employees in advance before you push any big changes to the policies. Another very interesting topic is insider risk, a topic I consider very interesting. It's when you have a person in the organization who is sending out sensitive data. And I sort of consider there's 4 different categories to this. Usually when you talk about insider risk, then you're referring to the first case, which is you have a malicious insider, somebody who's sending out data on purpose. They're full aware of what they're doing. And they're doing it perhaps for some personal gain, maybe to sell some trade secrets. But more often than this case is the accidental insider who just sent an accidental email to someone maybe that's unfortunately what most of the insiders are. A very interesting category that we focus on in DLP are exiting employees. So when somebody puts in a notice, we usually will have a special category for these people to monitor their activity, because when people are leaving organizations, they tend to take data they work with or they have on their devices with them, and they will send it to their personal emails, and they send a lot of it. They send, it's a whole bulk amount of data that they suddenly want to send. So these employees are especially dangerous. You don't know what they're going to be doing after they leave the organization, right? And then you have the typical compromised account of when there's a hacker that gets control of somebody's account that might have elevated privileges or have access to something extra sensitive. Okay. And then I also want to touch upon the AI as well, because for us it's great, like IT people, right? It's really pushing, it's advancing our field. But from the DLP perspective, this is enemy number one right now, because employees these days, they know that this makes their life easier, and they'll paste that Excel file into AI. But that Excel file will maybe show up in somebody else's results or be included in the training. So we really need to regulate, as DLP people, or like as the DLP team, we really need to sort of like crack down on AI, because it's really a threat for data getting out. And what we do is, for example, that we blacklist public AI domains, and we try to develop our own AI tools for internal use. Another sort of threat that AI poses is that it can discover some data that's not exactly managed, that could be sensitive, data that we haven't discovered yet. So this is a special category that we are focusing on recently. Okay. And I'm nearing the end, so I just want to leave with a few sort of like concepts that we use to develop our policies. The first is that we develop our policies with a zero trust mindset, which is that we assume that all employees, all devices are compromised, and sort of develop policies that support continuous verification instead of one-time permanent permission, because that's not very good at all. We need to verify that users can do the actions on a longer sort of like horizon of time. Another concept that we work with is to start with what's most critical, and also observe before enforcing. It's, as I mentioned before, that we need to do some testing before we can actually push some policies into production, because it could cripple the work of other departments. And a very good practice, I would say, is to work with other business units. So we cooperate maybe with HR, mergers and acquisitions, and it's very good because we can understand what their business needs are, how they work, what they need to do, and at the same time, they can also give us maybe a new area of sensitive data that we are not aware of. So it's very good to not be isolated, but to be working with other teams in the organization, all across the organization. It goes both ways. It works quite well. And then last but not least, DLP or data loss prevention is also an evolving area where we need to continuously review our policies and sort of adapt to the evolving IT infrastructure. As new tools and technologies come in, we need to adapt to that and make policies, or check if old settings might not be necessary these days. Maybe some exceptions should be removed. So it's something that's we can't do set it and forget it, but we need to review these things more regularly. I think I have 2 minutes left from what or 5 minutes, I think, yeah. So I think we still have time. If there's anything, I'm open to questions now, if you have any, yeah?
I'm interested, was the ratio of ELP team members to company employees in your scenario?
In ours, we have 10 engineers. They're sort of like not only here in Brno, but India and US as well. And Honeywell has 100,000 employees globally.
So 10 people are able to manage all those policies, false positives, and all the requests for 100,000 employees?
We do, when there's alerts that come in, then we do share, or we do pass on some of the work, or some of the incident management goes to the CERT team to first sort of like see if it's even related to us, because sometimes users also make tickets inside the organization that they're blocked from something. So we heavily rely also on the CERT team to help manage some of the incidents that come in. When it comes to the alerts themselves, then we have tools to make metrics and sort of see what's maybe, or it sort of needs some analysis, but we do monitor sort of like the big picture of sort of which policies are doing what, or sort of blocking, how many alerts are being generated. And we do have just some policies just to sort of, they don't do any action, but they're just there to detect what activities are happening, so that we could maybe develop policies or make changes. So yeah, I hope I answered. Maybe yeah.
Do you know some free tools or services we could or should use as students?
Well, I'm not sure if you need, as students, do you know if you need a data loss prevention strategy?
Maybe, but if we care about information, is there any tool like that would warn us when sending emails or using those chatbots?
Well, I mean, the one that comes to mind is the I've been pawned, right? Where you can sort of put in your email and it lets you know when it was compromised. We can sort of discuss this also after, yeah?
The question is that, like, now in this AI industrial era where the progress of the AI models are just growing and a lot of people are just coding with the AI models because they are getting better and better and better, how far are you able to catching up with your own AI tools with the models to not bring your company to some like AI coding middle age or something like that? Because I know that it's a huge fight between the security risks and the developers that want to use the newest AI models to produce more efficient and fast code for these things. So, and not only developers, it's also HR managers, and because it's making your job easier and more focused. So, it's your team, or is this team of the 10 people that are also developing these AI tools, or is somebody else, or how?
Well, you know, we do have close cooperation with Microsoft, and there's a lot of AI development coming from their side, like into our tools. The solution we use in Honeywell is a solution called Purview for data loss prevention. That's sort of one of the tools that's out there. So from Microsoft side, there's a lot of new sort of development on sort of that tool that uses AI. I don't have too much visibility into how the teams that are working on the internal AI, how they're faring with the.
I know that for like you call it HPI, but it's called PHI, like that data. It was a large thing on universities that they also want ban to just put this data to Microsoft or Google or whatever organization that are collaborating with them because it's so sensitive data. So they are trying to develop their own tools that are running on their servers. But I know that they are not able to catch the trend yet. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry if I
Well, I'll ask you because you didn't ask
I
it.
was wondering about involving the business shareholders when it comes to DLP. Is it really a good idea? Because I would think that sometimes the greed of shareholders can lead to mishandling of the data that leads to more profit.
That's a very good point.
How does it work in the real life?
I mean, most of the time we work with, so there's two aspects. We work closely with all the cybersecurity teams that are, so that's more of the closer collaboration for developing sort of solutions, and they can give us some of their input. When we work sort of outside of cybersecurity, it's very heavily focused on sort of discovering the new data, and sort of when we do discover, it's sort of like another kind of project that we're working on. It's sort of, as I mentioned, the crown jewels. We're sort of trying to identify the most critical business assets that the company has, and we're sort of reaching out to certain teams that might have these projects. And when we do sort of like start some kind of conversation with someone and they help us identify something, then we work with them to make like a special personalized setting to protect that specific type of crown jewel or intellectual property. So that can be more custom to their needs, but it's also like a smaller scope of data. Yeah. And you also had a question.
I'm more interested in like the integration, because like the action that can cause like potentially that can be like anything like transferring file to USB drive or like pasting something into AI, sending an email. Is there like some standardized way to report these actions, or we have to like customize it for like each application, or like how the actions get reported? Like to some DLP server, or I'm not really sure how that works, but just like how do these actions that get reported?
So it depends on what tool you have. Different tools can have sort of different sort of like visibility or different integration with technology. So some tools might be just focused on DLP solutions for the cloud. Some might be more sort of endpoint. The purview that I mentioned is heavily focused on all Microsoft related items. So heavily on sort of like Microsoft Office, but also sort of it can manage the computers pretty well. So when you're trying to send, or when you want to set some USB policy or Bluetooth policy, then it works quite well. So it's sort of, that's more on the level of the tool itself. But I guess sort of for what we have when it comes to reporting, it's because sort of all Microsoft related things are sort of connected in a way that they can develop this kind of tool to sort of like cover the whole package of Microsoft. That.
Okay, so it's different like from.
Definitely different from tool to.
Like
Definitely, yeah, yeah. It really depends on the solution.
Okay, thanks.
Did you want to ask it, or you're okay? So yeah, you can catch me at the Honeywell stand or anytime afterwards. Thank you for being here for the presentation. I hope you found it interesting and then maybe a little bit enjoyable as well. Have a good time here.